Imagine you are the biggest, strongest, most terrifying man in your ancient tribe. Your shoulders are broad, your brow is heavy, your fists can shatter bone. By every modern standard of survival of the fittest, you should be the king. You are exactly the type of alpha we are told women are biologically wired to choose, but tonight you are completely alone. No mates, no children. When you approached the fire, the women walked away. When you demanded meat, no one shared. For millions of years of primate history, brute strength meant you could take whatever you wanted. But suddenly, in our human ancestors, the rules changed. The biggest, most aggressive men weren't conquering the tribe, they were being ignored into extinction. You might think it's impossible to know why someone was rejected 300,000 years ago, but those exiled alphas left behind a physical confession: their skulls. Look at a human skull from 500,000 years ago. The violence is carved right into the bone, a brow ridge jutting out like a helmet, a jaw thick enough to absorb a club swing. Now look at a modern human. The armor is gone, the face is flat, fragile, almost delicate. If brute force actually won the evolutionary game, we should look like terrifying apex monsters today. Instead, the ultimate alpha traits were physically stripped out of our bloodline. In a prehistoric world crawling with predators, shedding your own armor is a biological death sentence. So what triggered the downgrade, and more importantly, how do you even erase millions of years of primate aggression from a species' DNA? For decades, scientists had no idea, until a bizarre animal experiment in the 1950s revealed a hidden cheat code in biology. A Russian researcher took wild, highly aggressive silver foxes and started a very specific breeding program. He didn't care about their size, their strength, or their fur. He only cared about one thing: he only allowed the calmest, friendliest foxes to breed. Within just 40 years, something impossible happened. The foxes didn't just change their behavior, their physical bodies actually mutated. Floppy ears appeared, their tails curled up, their snouts shrank, and their skulls literally got smaller. They started to look like dogs. The experiment proved a brutal biological rule. Nobody tried to change the fox's skulls, but when you filter out aggression, nature automatically softens the bone. Scientists call it domestication syndrome. A shrinking face is the physical footprint of deleted violence. If you see a mammal with a softer jaw and smaller teeth, it means the aggression was systematically bred out of it, which brings us right back to our own fragile, delicate human skulls. Someone or something bred the violence out of us, but there were no cages in the prehistoric jungle, so who actually had the power to domesticate the most dangerous ape on the planet? Women. Think about how shocking that is. In nature, a big, violent alpha doesn't ask for permission, he takes what he wants. Brute force always wins, but our female ancestors found a loophole. They realized you don't need to fight muscle with muscle, you fight it with information. They invented reputation. In a world without police or laws, survival depended entirely on the group. Women became the ultimate gatekeepers. They formed tight coalitions. They talked. If a big alpha hoarded meat or bullied the weak, the story spread through the camp in hours. By nightfall, his reputation was ruined. He was quietly, ruthlessly pushed out into the dark. But can whispers really defeat muscle? Can they actually shrink a species' skeleton? We don't have to guess. We can watch this exact loophole working in the wild right now. Look at chimpanzees and bonobos. They share almost all of our DNA. From a distance, they look identical, but their worlds are complete opposites. Chimp society is a brutal dictatorship. Muscle is law. The biggest males beat the females, kill infants, and wage literal bloody warfare against rival bands. The alpha takes what he wants, but bonobo society looks like a different planet. Why? Because female bonobos figured out the loophole. They formed a coalition. If a male bonobo tries to act like a violent alpha, he doesn't become king. Within seconds, he finds 3 or 4 adult females on top of him, tearing him apart. In bonobo society, the aggressive male doesn't rise to the top. He is ostracized and erased from the gene pool, and evolution noticed. Compared to a chimp, a male bonobo has smaller canine teeth, lower stress hormones, and a softer face. They look tame, just like us, two nearly identical species. The only difference is who holds the power, but this raises a massive question for our own history. If the violent alphas were pushed out into the dark to die, who was left sitting by the fire? The men who survived the filter weren't weak, they were just the ones willing to play by a new set of rules, and those rules created the biggest evolutionary paradox of all. Men didn't naturally evolve into fathers, women engineered them into it. In the primate world, males mate and leave. That is the standard biological playbook. A male chimp has no idea which infants are his. A male gorilla tolerates the young ones but rarely bonds with them. But by strictly rewarding the men who stayed calm and shared meat near the fire, our female ancestors completely rewired human biology. They essentially tamed the male reproductive drive, transforming the most dangerous ape on the planet into a permanent caregiver. Fatherhood wasn't a biological accident, it was demanded by women. With 2 parents providing food, childhood stretched out. Kids didn't have to fend for themselves right away, and because they had more time to grow, human brains had the time they needed to get massive. The soft jaw led to the long childhood led to the big brain led to language, tools, and art. But if you want to see the final, undeniable proof of this, you don't even need to look at a fossil. You just have to look someone in the eyes. Look at the eyes of a chimpanzee. The whites are almost completely hidden. Their gaze is a secret. In the brutal world of the jungle, letting an enemy know where you are looking can get you killed. For a wild animal, deception is survival. Now look at human eyes. The whites are massive. You can stand across a room and know exactly what someone is looking at. You can tell instantly if they are distracted, afraid, or lying. We are the readable ape. In a world of predators, broadcasting your inner thoughts is biologically suicidal unless you live in a society that aggressively punishes deception. A face built to be trusted could only evolve in a species that systematically killed off the untrustworthy. And the architects of that trust were the women who demanded men they could read. For centuries, scientists assumed human intelligence evolved to solve physical problems. We thought our massive brains grew so we could invent spears, discover fire, and outsmart mammoths. The evidence points somewhere completely different. The biggest brains in the animal kingdom don't belong to the best hunters, they belong to the most social species. Dolphins, elephants, primates, our brains didn't get big to navigate the woods, they got big to navigate each other. The most demanding intellectual task a prehistoric man faced wasn't tracking a deer, it was tracking the social web of the camp. He had to read the subtle signals of the women, who they trusted, who they warned their daughters about, who they wanted sitting next to them at the fire. A man who couldn't read those signals starved out of the gene pool. A man who could read them perfectly became an ancestor, but this leaves us with a terrifying question. If female choice built us, what happens when that choice is taken away? The taming of the human male is not a permanent, finished state, it is a fragile, ongoing system. Anthropologists have noticed that in societies where women lose the social power to choose their mates, the biological filter breaks down, violence spikes, cooperation drops, the social fabric frays. We are only as civilized as the filter allows us to be. Modern culture tells men that winning is a simple equation, get bigger, stronger, and more dominant. But in the prehistoric world, raw aggression was a death sentence. The men who actually became our ancestors weren't the most intimidating. They were the ones who could control their temper, build alliances, and earn the trust of the women around them. The image of the lone, untouchable alpha male says a lot about modern marketing, but it says absolutely nothing about human evolution.